unpopular opinion, but Lando Norris is the worst title contender in Formula One history. Norris is probably the most undeserving world champ in F1 history. The world champions hotline is not ready for And I'm about to tell you, I think he's going to be a great driver. Lando Norris hasn't had the warmest reception to becoming a world champion, with many people feeling that his 2025 season just wasn't quite good enough. But I think we're about to be shown the best version of Norris we've ever seen in 2026. Now, in all fairness, the nickname Bottle Job Norris didn't come from nowhere. The little bottles had been happening since even before 2025. The first of what would come to be known as the bottles happened in Sochi 2021, when the Formula One paddock arrived at yet another grey, bland car park street circuit. The driver setting the pace was not the expected Max Verstappen, who was at the back of the grid with penalties, or Lewis Hamilton. It was instead little Lando Norris.
And it's all too much for little Lando Norris.
He took pole and began a pretty decent lead of the race. It wouldn't be the easiest conditions to drive in, as rain would begin to fall. But if it's raining, that means Lando has a secret weapon. He has the great advantage of being British. We have some great intuition when it comes to the rain. In fact, it's actually raining outside right now.
I live in a shithole! Do you know what I mean? Birmingham is a fucking shithole!
And in Formula One, the British are often considered the best wet weather drivers. Sadly, for Lando Norris that day, he decided to copy Lance Stroll's homework.
Can you stay out on this condition? Can you stay out? Yeah.
And instead of pitting for the wet tyres that were working a lot better, he decided to try and hold out for track position on the dry tyres and win the race. Now, arguably, he didn't have quite as an embarrassing moment as Lance Stroll, but he did slide off the track with just 3 laps to go until the end, and therefore ruined any chances of taking his first win. Some do argue Lewis Hamilton would have caught him anyway, but I guess we'll never know. And this first win eluded Lando for a while. Just one round before Sochi, Norris had finished second to teammate Daniel Ricciardo in Italy, despite on race day Lando actually looking like the faster driver of the two. Then in 2023, for example, despite looking quick around a couple races and around Singapore, Norris either lost to the Red Bull rocket ship, which is fair enough, or couldn't make it past the smooth operator's excellent defense. Then 2024 rolled around. At this point, he wasn't yet called Bottle Norris. The ever-inventive F1 community had nicknamed him Lando No-Wins, as despite the McLaren starting to look more and more consistently fast, Lando Norris was yet to win anything. Meanwhile, the year before, his rookie teammate had taken a sprint win in Qatar ahead of Verstappen after Norris had, lo and behold, choked his final lap in qualifying, which is a point that will be important later on. Now, despite Verstappen having a great start to 2024, Lando finally managed to break the curse and get that first win in Miami. Even though at the time this seemed great for him and everyone was happy to see anyone other than Max Verstappen on the top step of the podium, it actually ended up hurting Lando over the next few rounds. This is because Lando's first win had come around entirely because of good timing and good luck with the safety car. I mean, in my personal opinion, that's fine. That's just how racing works. And as Max Verstappen said,
yeah, but I mean, it's always if, right? If my mom had balls, she would be my dad, so...
But in the opinion of your average F1 fan who spends more time drinking paint than bothering to actually watch the sport, it was a fraudulent win, pure luck. Of course, the no-wins Norris can't get a proper win. Lando would finally start to prove the eaters of drywall wrong when he took a strong, dominant win at the Dutch Grand Prix, then Singapore, then Abu Dhabi. Well, he would have proved them wrong if it wasn't for one thing. Lando Norris's race starts. The only place better than starting on pole position in 2024 was starting second behind Lando Norris, because he was guaranteed to mess up his starts that year. The Spanish Grand Prix and George Russell pulls an absolute blinder. In Hungary, his teammate got past him in the opening lap and eventually cost him the race win, as Lando lost favorability with priority on the team orders. Even in the Dutch Grand Prix, a race he won in quite a convincing fashion, Lando made things harder for himself than he needed to by losing position to Max Verstappen at the start. His big weakness was beginning to show. It would creep through into interviews. You could see it in his racing. He was under pressure.
I mean, we did. We had the speed to win. Just
Of course, the pressure would not be more apparent than in 2025, when Lando had to actually fight properly for the World Championship. And this time he had the best car. Now, sure, I'll give him this. His race starts got a lot better. He managed to iron out that issue. But he replaced one bottle habit with another bottle habit. During the last lap in Q3, he would constantly overdrive the car and make mistakes. He'd push too much, he would go off the track or something stupid and lose tenths to his teammate, and also Max Verstappen, often losing him race wins on tracks where he was clearly faster than both of those guys. Honestly, this skill issue probably wouldn't have been as apparent if the drivers could have actually overtaken. But 2025 was the year where the cars could overtake about as easily as me trying to squeeze past your mother in an alleyway. Yeah, we're bringing back your mama jokes in 2026. Your mama's so fat.
The Xbox Lord!
Don't get me wrong, there were still other silly mistakes here and there, like crashing into his teammate in Canada, but they became fewer and further between. By the end of the year, he'd somewhat sorted himself out again, and with a bit of help, his teammate caught the bottle virus and Kimi Antonelli forgot how brakes worked. So Lando Norris ended up beating Max Verstappen to the World Championship. But why do I think any of this will change? When under pressure, Lando Norris makes little mistakes here and there, and it often costs him valuable points. What's so different about 2026? The answer? Norris is a world champion.
Well, no fucking shit.
You might think that being a reigning world champion adds even more pressure because you've got to try and defend it. But I think something different might happen. And including the fact McLaren might not have the fastest car this year, I think Lando Norris will do something another driver did a few years ago. I gotta talk about Jenson Button. By 2008, Jenson Button was becoming a bit of a begotten driver. At that point, he was the guy who'd taken the third longest amount of time to get his first win. He'd been stuck in an unimpressive BAR Honda for years. And earlier in his career, he'd been dropped by Renault due to apparently being too much of a playboy and replaced by Fernando Alonso, who at this point was a two-time world champion. It seemed like Button had been forever relegated to a midfield driver, a what could have been story. Until in 2009, despite the team running on the same budget as hospital food, Jenson Button found that his Brawn car was the best one on the grid. And he was dominant during the first 7 rounds of the year, winning 6 of them, but round 8 was the British Grand Prix. And of course, off the back of a great Monaco win and a win in Turkey, he wanted to impress the home crowd.
Jenson Button, qualifying 6th, race result 6th.
Sure, the team had some financial issues, but it wasn't the car that was the problem. His teammate Rubens Barrichello had qualified 2nd and finished on the podium in 3rd. This was nothing to do with the car. This was a driver starting to feel the pressure. The rest of the season began to play out the same for Button, overdriving in qualifying and suffering in the races because of it. His teammate Barrichello actually managed 2 more wins over the season, but Jenson was struggling to even step on the podium. It was getting to the point where it looked like Rubens, or even more likely Red Bull's Sebastian Vettel, would walk away with the title. With Button just always overdriving the car, it wasn't a lack of skill. It wasn't a lack of caring. If anything, he was trying too hard. He was overcompensating, just like Mohammed Ben Salem. I had to throw a little dig in. If you've ever played a racing game, you'll know what this feels like. If you're too angry, you're probably going to crash into someone. If you're too stressed, you might be a little bit too hesitant and lose pace that way. If you're in any other state than calm, you'll probably make mistakes. That's why drivers always talk about getting into this flow state where they're not actually thinking about driving. Then Button got to Brazil, and despite another poor qualifying in the race, he finally managed to reach that state, put on a brilliant comeback drive to P5 and secured the world title. Very similar to how near the end of this year, Lando Norris was able to find form. Do you know how he was able to do that? By taking pressure off himself. He got rid of the delta on his steering wheel, which essentially is just the system that tells you if you're up or down on your previous lap. He stopped thinking about driving the car and just drove it. I think that's part of the reason why Button was actually one of the few people who had faith in Lando for 2025, because he's been through something similar himself. Once Button won the championship, we saw a completely different man. Not only did he become Jenson, the first driver to press the DRS button, But despite turning 30 years old, which is extremely unk in athlete world, and having over 100 race starts, very experienced for a Formula 1 driver, I would say 2010 and 2011 were almost undoubtedly Jenson Button's prime years. He moved to McLaren alongside Lewis Hamilton and held his own, winning races over the 2010 season. Then, despite McLaren not having a championship-worthy car in 2011, Button drove the absolute wheels off the thing to achieve multiple race victories, beat legendary buzzcut-era Hamilton, and managed to finish ahead of Red Bull's Mark Webber, who had a Red Bull rocket ship that year, and ended second in the standings overall, being the runner-up to none other than Sebastian Vettel.
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now.
Nothing showed Button's incredible new pace better than Canada 2011. A race where the man somehow managed to go from last to first with the most pit stops ever and in horrible rainy conditions. If you're wondering, it's still raining in the UK. Seriously though, if you want a look at how good that drive actually was, watch this video here. It's pretty interesting. Jenson Button went from being a driver that felt like a coin toss if he was going to be good or in the bin, to being a reliable, safe pair of hands who would be absolutely rapid in the hardest conditions of the sport. And he'd get you a few race wins if the car wasn't McLaren Honda. We don't talk about McLaren Honda. This is exactly what I see happening to Lando Norris. Now that he's a world champion, he will finally relax. He won't overthink his driving in qualifying. He won't be making silly mistakes in the race. He has nothing left to prove. He is one of 35 of the best drivers in the world. He won't overthink defending on the race start and let half the grid go past him. Lando will now start driving more on instinct, and he'll have the confidence in himself. Just like Jenson Button, I can see Lando Norris having some of the best years of his career right now, after he's already won a world title. Either that, or he does a Jacques Villeneuve, gives up, and starts making gimpy music. Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri locks in and washes the absolute windows with him, and I'll look like a complete and utter moron. One of those two things will happen. If you want to find out which, please do subscribe to see me try and talk about some other stuff in this sport and pretend like I know what's going on. I really do appreciate the recent support, and with that said, a massive thank you to my channel members, especially the Legend tier members. You guys are awesome, but you can become one from just 99p a month, and I really do appreciate any support you can give. It goes a long way. Thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of your day, and goodbye!